Here's the truth nobody tells you: that voice in your head, the one that doubts you, the one that tells you you're not good enough, the one that nitpicks every single thing you do, isn't always telling the truth. In fact, most of the time it's lying. It's not some wise guardian of reality. It's a scared, outdated, and overprotective part of you that's stuck in the past. And if you don't learn to recognize it, it will run your life without you even realizing it. That inner critic is not who you are. It's just a pattern, a loop of old thoughts you've heard so many times they feel like facts. Maybe those words came from a parent who didn't know better, a teacher who underestimated you, a boss who made you doubt your worth, or a moment where you failed and decided that failure defined you. And now, every time you think about trying something new, that voice pops up to remind you of all the reasons you might not make it. But here's the thing: it's not reminding you to help you. It's reminding you to keep you small. The inner critic thrives on fear. Fear of embarrassment, fear of failure, fear of judgment, and fear is sneaky. It dresses itself up as logic. You'll hear it say things like, be realistic, or you're not ready yet, or you'll look stupid. And because it sounds reasonable, you listen, you shrink back, you hesitate, you wait for a moment that never comes. But what if, just for a second, you asked yourself, what if this voice is lying? What if I'm more capable than it says I am? That question alone has the power to break the cycle. When you stop believing every word your inner critic says, you start to see how much it's been holding you back. You realize how many opportunities you've passed up, how many dreams you've shelved, how much potential you've ignored, because you took a scared little voice and treated it like the voice of truth. But you are not here to live life on mute. You are not here to stay in the safety zone until you die. You are here to grow, to stretch, to fail, to rise, and to find out just how much you're capable of. The next time that voice starts up, don't fight it and don't obey it, question it, interrupt it, talk back to it. Replace its tired old lies with something that pulls you forward instead of holding you back. You can say, thanks for your opinion, but I'm doing it anyway. You can say, I've got this. You can say, even if I mess up, I'll figure it out. Because the truth is, you are stronger, braver, and more resourceful than that voice gives you credit for. And the day you stop letting your inner critic have the final say is the day you start living on your own terms. That's when you realize that voice isn't some all-knowing judge. It's just background noise. And you're the one holding the mic. Your inner critic is sneaky. It doesn't come at you yelling and screaming like some movie villain. No, it slips in quietly, using the voice you know best, your own, and it convinces you that what it's saying is truth. It tells you you're not good enough. You're not ready. You don't have what it takes. And here's the thing you need to understand: that voice is not telling you the truth. It's telling you your fears. Your inner critic is not a truth teller. It's a fear teller. And most of the fears it's feeding you are built from old experiences, old hurts, and outdated stories that no longer match who you are today. Think about it. That voice didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was shaped by the things people said to you, the moments you failed, the times you were judged, and the lessons you absorbed when you were too young to realize that not everything you hear should be taken as fact. Maybe a teacher told you you'd never be great at writing, and here you are, decades later, still believing it without even questioning if it's still true. Maybe your parents criticized you in a way that made you feel like you were always falling short, so now your own mind has taken over the job of keeping you in line. The problem is, that inner critic isn't protecting you, it's trapping you. The fear teller lives off the past. It collects every embarrassing moment, every rejection, every disappointment, and it stores them like ammunition. And whenever you start to dream a little bigger or step a little outside your comfort zone, it fires those memories right back at you. Remember when you tried before and failed? Remember how stupid you felt when that didn't work out? You don't want to go through that again. That's not truth. That's a highlight reel of fear dressed up as wisdom. Here's what makes this so dangerous: because it uses your own voice, it feels like your own reasoning. You hear it in your mind, and it feels familiar, safe even. You don't stop to ask, wait a minute, where is this coming from? Is this actually me? Or is this a script I've been running for years without noticing? The fear teller loves that you don't question it. It loves that you assume it's just being realistic. But what it's actually doing is building a cage around your potential. The truth is, most of the limits in your life aren't real. They're stories, and your inner critic is the narrator of those stories. It tells them so convincingly that you forget to check the facts. If you pause long enough to really think about it, you'd realize that a lot of what it says has no proof. It's just a feeling, a reflex your brain has developed to keep you from risking discomfort. But here's the irony: avoiding discomfort is exactly what keeps you stuck in a life you don't want. So the next time that voice pipes up with, "You're not ready," or "You can't do this," stop and ask yourself, is that the truth, or is that fear talking? When you start calling it out for what it is, a fear teller, not a truth teller, you take away its power. You begin to see that most of the limitations you believe about yourself aren't grounded in reality, they're echoes from the past. And the moment you see them for what they are, you can start choosing a different story, a story that actually matches who you are now, not who you used to be, and definitely not who your fears want you to remain. Your inner critic loves to act like it has a crystal ball. It speaks with such authority, like it's already seen the future and knows exactly what's going to happen if you take that next step. It says, you're going to fail, people are going to laugh at you, you'll embarrass yourself, you'll regret it. And here's the wild part: you believe it, not because it's proven right before, but because it's so convincing in the moment. It makes its predictions sound like facts, when in reality, they're just guesses fueled by fear. This is where you've got to get brutally honest with yourself. Your inner critic is not a psychic. It cannot see the future. All it's doing is recycling old fears and past experiences, projecting them forward as if they're inevitable. You've failed before, it tells you you'll fail again. If you've been rejected before, it tells you rejection is coming. But life doesn't work like that. The future is not written. Just because something happened once, or even multiple times, doesn't mean it's guaranteed to happen again. Yet your inner critic talks like it's delivering prophecy, and you buy into it without even questioning the source. Think about the number of things in your life you were nervous about. The moments you thought would end in disaster that actually turned out fine or even amazing. Your first day at a new job, speaking up in a meeting, reaching out to someone you admired. The fear beforehand was huge, but the reality often completely different. That's because the inner critic operates on worst case scenarios. It assumes the most painful outcome is the most likely one. And once you realize that, you can start to see how irrational it actually is. The problem is, your brain is wired to pay more attention to danger than possibility. It's a survival mechanism. Back when we were dodging predators and trying to stay alive, assuming the worst kept us safe. But now, the same instinct that once saved us is the one that's stopping us from speaking up in a meeting, applying for that dream opportunity, or changing careers. Your inner critic is like an overly cautious bodyguard. It means well, but it's way overprotective. It's keeping you from walking into the room where your life could actually change for the better. The key is learning to separate fact from prediction. A fact is something you can prove with evidence. I have done this before successfully, or I have trained for this moment. A prediction is just a story your brain makes up. You're going to fail, or this will be a disaster. The next time your inner critic starts forecasting doom, pause and ask, where's the proof? If there's no evidence, if it's just fear talking, then it's not the truth, it's just noise. When you start treating your inner critic like an unreliable narrator instead of a fortune teller, you open up the possibility for a different future. One that's shaped not by recycled fear, but by action, courage, and curiosity. Because here's the reality: your inner critic might think it knows what's coming, but the only way to actually find out is to step forward anyway. And more often than not, you'll be surprised by how wrong that voice really is. Your inner critic has this nasty habit of hitting you where it hurts most by attacking your worth. It doesn't just say, that idea might not work. It says, you're not smart enough to make it work. It doesn't just warn you about rejection. It whispers, you're not lovable enough, not talented enough, we're not worthy enough. And the dangerous thing is, when you hear that voice often enough, you start to confuse it with the truth. You start wearing those words like a name tag, carrying them into every room you walk into, every relationship you start, every opportunity you consider. Here's the thing: your inner critic didn't invent those words out of thin air. It's an echo, it's a remix of comments, experiences, and moments from your past where you felt small, embarrassed, or not good enough. Maybe it was a teacher who told you you'd never be a good writer. Maybe it was a parent who compared you to someone better. Maybe it was a friend who made a joke that cut a little too deep. At the time, you didn't have the tools to push back, so you absorbed it. And over the years, those moments stacked up until they became this ongoing internal monologue that questions your every move. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your worth is not up for debate. It's not tied to a job title, a bank account, or the number of likes on your post. You were born with it. You don't have to earn it, prove it, or maintain it. You can screw up, make mistakes, face rejection, and still be 100% worthy as a human being. The problem is, your inner critic doesn't operate with that understanding. It's not interested in facts. It's interested in control. And the easiest way for it to control you is to make you doubt yourself so deeply that you stop trying altogether. If you've ever wondered why you hold back from going after the things you want, it's often because you've internalized this false narrative. If I were truly worthy, I wouldn't feel this much fear. That's wrong. Fear is not a sign you're not ready. It's a sign you care. Your inner critic will try to spin it as evidence that you're not capable, but that's a lie. Feeling scared, nervous, or unsure is not proof of unworthiness. It's proof you're about to do something that matters. One powerful shift you can make is to stop letting your inner critic have the final word. You can hear it. It's not going away, but you don't have to obey it. When it says, "You're not good enough," you counter with, "I am learning, I am growing, and I am still worthy." When it says, "You're going to embarrass yourself," you say, "I'd rather try and fail than keep myself small." It's not about silencing that voice completely. It's about building a louder, stronger voice that knows your value and refuses to shrink just because fear wants you to. Because here's what happens when you start challenging that internal dialogue. You begin to act in alignment with your worth instead of your wounds. You stop treating opportunities like tests you might fail and start seeing them as experiences that will grow you. You stop waiting for someone else to validate you and start living from a place of self-acceptance. And over time, that inner critic, it doesn't disappear, but it gets quieter. It loses its grip because you finally learned that your worth was never something it had the power to take away in the first place. Your inner critic is a master of creating evidence that doesn't exist. It will twist your memories, filter out the good, and highlight every single failure or awkward moment like it's a flashing neon sign in your brain. It will take one time you messed up, one rejection, one mistake, and act like it's the definitive proof that you can't do something. And because it's coming from inside your own head, you believe it. You don't stop to question, wait a minute, is this even true? You just accept it like it's a fact carved in stone. The most dangerous part, the stories your inner critic tells you are not objective. They're biased, exaggerated, and often completely false. Your brain is not a neutral narrator. It's a fear-based storyteller that's wired to protect you from pain by convincing you not to take risks. And it doesn't just use logic, it uses emotion. It will replay the sound of laughter when you tripped in front of a crowd, the sting of someone's disapproval, the hollow pit in your stomach when you didn't get chosen. It will amplify those feelings until they feel fresh and real again, just to keep you from stepping into situations where it thinks you might feel that way again. But here's the catch. Your inner critic isn't actually protecting you from harm, it's protecting you from growth. It's mistaking discomfort for danger, and there's a huge difference between the two. Discomfort is walking into a room where you don't know anyone. Danger is walking into a burning building. Your inner critic treats them the same. So every time you're on the verge of change, it will flood you with warnings and proof that you should stay where you are. The truth is, proof your inner critic uses against you is selective. It leaves out all the moments where you succeeded, adapted, or showed resilience. It doesn't remind you of the time you spoke up and someone actually agreed. It doesn't play back the feeling of pride you had when you accomplished something you didn't think you could do. It conveniently forgets those because they don't serve its narrative. This is why you have to start fact-checking your own thoughts. When your inner critic says, "You always mess things up," you stop and ask, "Always? Really? What about the last time I figured something out under pressure?" When it says, "No one likes you," you counter with, "That's not true. Here are 3 people who've shown me they care." You start collecting evidence for the opposite argument. Because the moment you bring logic into the conversation, the emotional power of that inner critic starts to weaken. Here's the thing. You will never completely get rid of that voice. It's part of how your brain works, but you can strip it of its authority. You can stop letting it be the judge, jury, and executioner of your dreams. Every time you challenge its facts with real, balanced evidence, you remind yourself that you're not at the mercy of that narrative. You get to write the story, And once you understand that most of what your inner critic says is a distorted version of reality, you stop treating it like a truth teller and start seeing it for what it really is, a scared part of you that doesn't have the full picture. And the beautiful thing is, the moment you take away its fake proof, you take back your power to decide what's actually possible for you. Your inner critic thrives in silence. The less you challenge it, the louder it gets. The longer you let it run wild in your mind, the more convincing it becomes. It's like a bully who's been left unchecked for years. Every time you stay quiet, every time you swallow the thought instead of confronting it, you're basically handing it a megaphone. And before you know it, you're not even living your own life anymore. You're living the one your inner critic decided you're allowed to have. That's why the fastest way to weaken it is to start speaking up out loud. I'm talking about literally voicing your doubts, your fears, your thoughts, and then responding to them. Because here's the truth, thoughts feel so much more powerful when they stay trapped inside your head. They swirl around, echo, and build pressure until they feel like reality. But the second you speak them out loud, they start to sound different. They lose some of their weight. They become words instead of these big, heavy truths carved into your identity. Imagine this, your inner critic says, you're not smart enough to pull this off. If you keep that thought inside, it will hook into your emotions and you'll feel it in your chest, your stomach, your whole body. But if you say it out loud, literally hear yourself say, I'm not smart enough to pull this off. It gives you a moment to actually hear how ridiculous it sounds. That pause gives your rational brain a chance to step in and say, hold on, that's not even true. And that's the crack of light you need to push back. Speaking up doesn't always mean confronting another person. It starts with confronting yourself. When your inner critic whispers, don't apply for that job, you're going to embarrass yourself. You respond out loud.